Good evening and welcome inside the park along with Ryan Thies. I'm Barry Nelson here to bring you all of the Major League Baseball action from the week that was and looking forward to the upcoming week. Ryan, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good.
How was your weekend?
I traveled down to Kansas City, had a good time.
You actually graduated from college.
Yeah, high school.
Okay, high school.
What's the difference, right?
Well, you look like you're in high school.
Thank you.
So you graduated from college finally?
Yeah, I walked. I got my graduation requirements last semester, but they invited us back for the spring commencement.
Okay.
Didn't want to pass up a chance to see all those fabulous people again. And so I went.
Party pretty hard?
You could say so, yeah.
Well,
it was definitely fun.
Well, that's good.
Fun.
That's what it's supposed to be. College life is supposed to be fun, but now it's over, and now you got to get to the real world. Although you're in graduate school yet, so it's still not that bad.
Real life.
Real life is on hold.
A little bit.
Yeah. You're about 20% real life, about 80% still in college. In any case, we're going to be talking Major League Baseball. Like I said, we're going to be joined by Jessica Kleinschmidt, our MLB insider and baseball writer for several media outlets. We're also going to be playing Fair or Foul. We'll be playing Fast Five with her. It's a new game that I came up with, and we're going to get her take on a few things. So we'll talk about that. But first off, I want to talk about the week that was. We had talked previously last week about the upcoming Baltimore-Boston matchup, and it certainly didn't disappoint.
Yeah, I was wrong. I'll be the first one to tell you I was wrong. I thought that was going to be the end of it. Nothing was going to transpire, and it just got way worse.
Yeah, Chris Sale, the week before, had thrown behind Manny Machado, and it was just, it seemed like everybody was going after Manny Machado, and then all of a sudden Manny Machado decided that he was going to go ahead and hold an impromptu press conference after he got hit, and this is what he had to say. Does he have a legitimate gripe? I mean, is it kind of in favor of the pitcher?
First off, I want to say taking your bat to a pitcher and crushing him on what he says is a little different than getting hit by a pitch, whether on purpose
still do
or
the same
not.
damage, I suppose.
Yeah, but you can definitely have more jail time with the whole...
Or be suspended for a year, like he said, right?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more of an issue there than just a year suspension if you're Manny Machado. But I mean, it's childish to still be talking about this. It's really just uncalled for both sides to be thrown at or throw at each other, and it should just be over by now. It's been way too. It should just be the slide happens, one person gets hit, whether it's Machado or someone else, the next day, and then it's over. But because they waited, and because there was kind of a delay in that, and then someone got hit, and then there was a bigger problem, and there was more problem. It's just not fun. That's not how if you're going to fight, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
No, and one thing that I saw the next night is Kevin Gausman. I love this. Kevin Gausman actually threw a curveball that hit a Boston player. I can't remember who the Boston player was. If we have that, we're going to have that video coming up very shortly. He threw a curveball, and it was clearly not inside. It was clearly not intentional, and all of a sudden they threw him out right away.
Yeah,
77 mile per hour curveball. He knew it. He didn't want to he didn't want to hit him, and all of a sudden, goes, you're out. And that's kind of the overcompensation from the umpires.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you got certain things that you have to do and certain things that you should be doing, but you got to take care of them early on. I mean, that was just an overreaction, I think, by the umpire, and it was just one of those things that just kind of kept the ball rolling and kept the animosity between the two teams going. And now they're saying that Chris Sale is not going to be suspended. He's probably not even going to be fined for throwing behind Manny Machado last week. Manny Machado's not going to be fined for his remarks towards Boston. Where does this go from here? I don't know if I want you to predict that one.
I can tell you where I want it to go. I want it to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be talking about Red Sox Orioles anymore. about as far as fights are concerned, or throwing at people, or thinking that people are throwing at each other, whether it's a curveball that just got a little bit away or not. The fact that we're even having to discuss if we think it was on purpose or not is an issue.
I know, and it's stupid, and you don't want to talk about it anymore. So you know what? We won't. No. We'll talk about it. We'll move on, and we'll go on to talk about Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey was just suspended today for 3 games after not showing up to the ballpark on Saturday. Supposedly. Now they're saying the reason why he didn't show up is because he had a headache. Now there may be a reason behind that headache. A lot of sources are pointing to the fact that he was out the day before playing golf and having some fun. So they think that maybe it's a little bit more than just a headache. But Matt Harvey suspended 3 games, hopefully going to be placed back in the lineup against Milwaukee on Friday. A lot of people saying Matt Harvey's got to either grow up or get out. What do you think?
To an extent, yes. He does have a reputation of not being the nicest guy or not being the best team player on the Mets. But if it is for the reason that the Mets state that he didn't show up for a day because of the previous day's extracurricular activities, then I think it's a good message to send. The timing with it is kind of off because the Mets are just a complete train wreck right now, and you can just add to the list of the bad things that have happened to the Mets, whether self-inflicted or not. But I think it was the right thing to do if that's what actually happened.
And let me get my facts straight. He actually went to play golf early Saturday morning, and he was supposed to report to the ballpark Saturday afternoon. He said he had a headache, didn't show up. They said it's a miscommunication issue, and John Heyman, one of Jessica Kleinschmidt's predecessors or one of her colleagues, actually wrote for FanRag Sports on this, so we'll be able to ask her about that when she comes in. But Matt Harvey suspended for 3 games, and also on the Mets side, they pulled a little prank on one of their rookies. They actually had a picture that they took of, and the name escapes me, of who the rookie was, but they put up a picture on Twitter congratulating him on a fantastic game, and unfortunately, something in the bottom right-hand corner got.
You're gonna say it? I'm not gonna say it.
Should I say it? Well, we'll just say it was a female. Well, it's a female sex toy, basically, is what it is.
There we go. Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to use the slang term for it, but, they thought it was a funny prank, and it's gone viral, and they don't think there's going to be any repercussions of that, but Sandy Alderson, the GM of the Mets, is taking that into consideration. So what do you think? I mean, do you think it's a harmless prank, or do you think it's something that should be taken seriously?
No, I think it's harmless and kind of unlucky. When you have the spotlight on you that much, something like that's bound to happen, especially if you're in a locker room at any level. There's all types of stuff that those teams do not want public, and it was just an accident, a PR disaster for the Mets. They could have really edited a little bit or paid attention a little bit more, but it is kind of hidden in the shadows of the locker.
It was Mets star T.J. Rivera, and it was in Kevin Plawecki's locker. And even according to one of the reports, he said, "I swear it's not mine." He's totally against that, but and not taking responsibility. But he said that it was just a prank. It was placed in the locker as part of a prank. And I guess if you're a rookie and you're in the dressing room,
I think it's harmless.
Yeah, I think so too.
Just something for the guys to laugh about.
And something for us to laugh about, and something for us to talk about, too. Ian checking in on Facebook, as well as you can, too, saying, "Evening, gentlemen." Paul says, "Will the Mets need to trade for a starting pitcher sooner than later?" And we'll talk to Jessica Kleinschmidt about that, but I think that's definitely a possibility on down the road, especially with Syndergaard and Harvey. And, well, Jacob deGrom's actually pitching pretty well, but they have some holes that they need to fill. So we'll get back to the Mets in just a little bit. But over the course of the weekend on Saturday, the Royals They were getting set for a game against Cleveland, and it was actually a dress to the nines day for the Negro League, celebrating the Negro Leagues. And unfortunately, before the game, they had a swarm of bees take over the
Big
upper
one.
deck. And we say a swarm of bees, we're not talking about 4, 5, 6 bees. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds. I mean, the grounds crew had to come up. Yeah,
that is brave. No bee suit.
And they said there were no bees harmed in their getting rid of all the bees from the upper deck. But I mean, you look at just how many bees there were, and how they had to take care of that, and how they had to get rid of that all before the game between the Indians and the Royals. And I just love the Indians' response. They said, "They're eating our flesh off. Save yourselves from Tommy Boy." That was kind of clever on their part, their tweet. But wow, it was just absolutely crazy.
This is something that kind of happens in spring training too. Ned Yost has actually been asked about the bees, and he's very in favor of the bees. He likes to know about the bees and make sure that the bee population in the world is okay. And so he was very happy to learn that no bees were harmed in his own ballpark.
Well, that's good. But they did get the game underway, and it was they're
lucky to have someone on the grounds crew who's also a beekeeper.
Right.
Yeah. So
because they did bring out some beekeeping equipment to try and get those bees corralled and everything.
How can you do that with no bee suit?
It's brave.
No way I could do that.
Brave. Are you allergic to stings?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
neither am I. But
just because if you're not allergic doesn't mean you don't like to be stung by a bee. No one.
True. I guess. Looking on Facebook, our comments. All right, Kleinschmidt, I'll say it. She said, "It's a damn dildo. It's a dildo." So I'll say it. Zach saying, Cardinals, thoughts? Where do we stand in the NL? And we'll be talking about that, the NL Central race with Jessica coming up very shortly. Next thing on our stadium tour, Ezekiel Carrera. He hit a home run this weekend, and it was very. I don't want to say it was controversial, but it was. They couldn't tell whether or not it was a home run. It landed in a very weird spot. And if we take a look at this, if we take a look at the way it was hit and where it was hit, you'll understand why there was some confusion. Here he hits it in Tropicana Field, and it hits just over the railing. It rattles around, and then it comes back. So it's not very easy to see if. We'll play the replay. They play it again.
On that view, it looks like it hit off the wall.
Right.
So everyone on the field, outside of the two outfielders that were right there,
and especially
it's off the wall.
And especially with Sousa coming up short on the fence, and he just kind of ducked his head and just turned around. I would have thought that would have given it away, but Carrera just zoomed around the bases, and they said that today they're going to make sure that they determine whether or not it's going to be an official inside the park home run or if it's going to be an outside the park home run. We saw it; it just left the yard. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're going to rule that it's a natural home run.
Yeah, it has to be, and you can tell. My thing is when you see him rounding third base, you see the infielders and everyone else waving, like get the ball.
Oh, okay.
To Sousa. Go, what are you doing? Get the ball.
And he had the best angle. He had the best vantage point.
Because they saw that it was over the fence.
Right.
And so that's kind of just a telltale sign that it was over. Plus, you can obviously see.
Oh, yeah. Replay shows, and they said that if they wouldn't have ruled a home run, they would have replayed it, and it probably would have gotten overturned.
Mm-hmm. The interesting thing was the MLB play-by-play, like the game cast, said it was inside the park. But then there's scoring change with the official scorekeeper who said it was an out of the park home run. So we'll have to. I'm sure
they'll go with the outside the park home run. Or out of the
home
park
run nonetheless.
Home run nonetheless. It only counted for one run. Their only run of the ball game. This week actually, Hanley Ramirez is going to be making his season debut at first base for the Brewers. Obviously, Hanley Ramirez, the designated hitter. Usually for Boston, now he actually has to play the field. He's got some experience, and he's done pretty well in some spotty time at first base. And it's going to be interesting to see. He used to be a shortstop, then he played the outfield for a little bit. Now he's at first base. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be a defensive liability for those Red Sox coming into these interleague games.
I mean, the position that has the least, or I guess in a way, it's something you can pick up easy if you played the infield for a while. You throw to the first baseman all the time, so you know kind of just the basics of it. So I feel he's going to pick it up easy. He's a baseball player. It's something that it's not like football where you move from cornerback to linemen, it's very, very different game. It's still something he's able to do.
So Hanley Ramirez making his debut against the Brewers this week as they travel here to Miller Park. Earlier this weekend, Aaron Judge hit his 13th home run in 97 at-bats. Now people aren't just talking about him for Rookie of the Year. People are talking about him for a legitimate MVP candidate. What do you think?
I think it's possible. It's definitely not impossible.
I didn't realize how big he was until I read an article.
Huge.
He's 6'6", 240?
Very large.
I mean, he's a big boy, and he's blasting him out, and there's really nobody that can stop him right now.
Yeah, right now he's got to keep it up. It's obviously his rookie year, so we'll have to see if he's able to sustain it as much as he has now. That's certainly going to be a question mark, but I think for the Yankees, you got to love what he's doing now. You got to love what he can do in the future after he gets more years of experience here. The Yankees playing real good baseball right now, too, so not really much they can complain about.
A couple of down years where they didn't make the playoffs or they've been a little underproductive according to their...
Boo-hoo for
Yeah,
them.
exactly. 27 championships. Speaking of people that don't make the playoffs, the rest of the NL East besides the Washington Nationals, are they even in contention? Is the race in the NL East over after a month?
By definition, no.
But by realism?
But yes.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's over on May 8th, but it's certainly getting there. It's definitely.
I mean, they're 6.5 games behind.
It's shaping up to be a not exciting NL East race this year. I'll leave it at that.
And we'll talk about that in fair and foul. We'll also talk about that now as we bring in Jessica Kleinschmidt. Jessica Kleinschmidt, our baseball writer and MLB insider. You can see her. Writing on Fangraphs, Sportsnut, MSN Sports, FanRag, and Jessica. We were talking about your colleague John Heyman writing about the Matt Harvey story, and that's our first question for you: is what's going on with the Mets? Injuries now, Matt Harvey. What's the real story behind that?
Well, I mean, it just feels like it's bad timing, right? So in this particular case, we aren't 100% sure what happened with Matt Harvey. They were originally saying those rumors about that dildo were turned down, but that's turning into a situation where maybe they were embarrassed by it, so they're not 100% coming out with what went down. But Terry Collins himself said that nobody really and I'm putting words in his mouth. He's unsure if anybody on his team actually respects Matt Harvey. The guy just has like a rough, I guess, history of getting along with his teammates. So that alone is just a thing. And, kind of missed his start, and he just seems almost careless, and he has a lot of growing up to do. He's very much a playboy guy, like, dating all these models, and that's kind of where his scenario has been. It's like, great, like, we understand that you can't be Joe Namath and not perform, right? So that's kind of where my scenario is with him. And he's just, just coming back from injury, and it's really hard to take him seriously. And then, of course, you have Noah Syndergaard, who refused to do an MRI, which is started off me thinking, oh, he's just very stubborn. He's an athlete. He's a man. He's just not going to pay attention to his body. But then it turned into this whole thing, and now he's out for 6 weeks. And then Yoenis Cespedes is out with injury. It just seems like it keeps happening. So I just think it's bad timing. And then, of course, they're getting desperate because no offense to Tommy Milone and Doug Fister, but there's absolutely no velocity on any sort of their situation, and they're getting them hired or they're getting them promoted. So it doesn't really obviously something's going down if you're promoting these types of guys and signing guys like that. So it's just a really bad scenario when it comes to the Mets right now. Like I said, awful timing, and I just don't know what else to say. It's just really a crappy situation.
It's interesting because when the Brewers here in Milwaukee are in a rebuilding mode and they cut this guy, there's something not right, and now all of a sudden the Mets are placing him in the rotation, along with taking a look at Doug Fister, who's had a lackluster last few years and really lost a lot of velocity on his fastball. I mean, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here? I mean, we were just talking about it. I know you were listening off the air. Is the NL East race over with after a month?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's an awkward portion of the season. It's like people are in, obviously the all-star ballots are already out, and that's just kind of what MLB likes to do. And it's a difficult scenario to really say with that. But enough time's gone by where we do have, good data to kind of represent itself. So when it comes to that division, it's always been an interesting division. And when it comes to the Mets, particularly heading into this season, they had a lot of pressure on them. They've been performing well in the last couple of seasons, and finally getting DeGrom back and Harvey back, and hopefully Matz is coming back, and then obviously Syndergaard is their number one ace was just great, and then Yoenis Cespedes, and then I was really excited to see what Conforto was going to do and all this other stuff. But it just seems like all these bad things are happening. So it is a month in. It's an awkward time frame. I don't want to say yes, but I don't want to say no at the same time when it comes to this division, particularly with the Mets. But I mean, like you said, they're just adding bodies at this point. They're looking at their free agency lists and saying, let's get this guy, let's get that guy. And if you're that desperate to get somebody like Doug Fister, who hasn't performed in 2 seasons, it's really difficult for me to say. And like I said, Malone has no velocity behind any of his pitches. So it's just a really crappy situation at the moment.
So you have this situation with the Mets going on. All hell is breaking loose with them. They need to get back on track. Does Sandy Alderson turn to that gentleman that's in the minor leagues, one of your favorites, we all know? Does he go to Tim Tebow sometime this year and say, hey, bring the fans back?
Don't even friggin' finish that question. No.
Okay.
It's not going to happen.
I just wanted to make sure that he wasn't. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't going to bring him in just as a promotional thing to bring the fans back, because you got to think that if they're playing this bad now.
No, the AAA team already alone is bad, and you're adding that scenario, and your producers are giving me crap right now. I can't even deal. But it's just, it's not going to happen. And don't get me wrong, he's doing well, and there's so many other storylines in regards to Tebow, and you have that hot week and everything like that. But you have to remember there are other really great AAA guys and AA guys in that organization who do deserve a shot, especially from that bullpen. There actually is quite a bit of wonderful pitching going on in AAA with the AAA Vegas 51. So it's definitely a scenario like that. But Tim Tebow will not be a Major League Baseball player. It will not happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well. There's
I had
no
to
way.
ask.
There's no way.
Baxter made no. I'm just kidding. I had to ask.
Baxter freaking made you because he knows it just question pisses me off.
All right, let's talk AL East now, specifically Red Sox and Orioles. Lots going on this past week with those 2 teams, but no suspensions for Chris Sale or Manny Machado. Do you think there should have been?
Yes and no. It was definitely an interesting scenario. I mean, the Red Sox and the Orioles are now the new Yankees and Red Sox, that rival, but there's quite more heat behind it. And Manny Machado's always been a guy that's been on edge. He's got that type of temper, and it just is what it is. So when it comes to this scenario, I understood where it was coming from, where it's, I guess, old school rules. You throw out a pitcher because something happens, and baseball players have an amazing memory. But at the same time, Rob Manfred himself said you can tell it wasn't intentional, or not necessarily not intentional, but it wasn't just a typical, I'm going to throw behind this runner type of deal, or throw behind this batter type of deal. And you get a personality like Chris Sale and Manny Machado in the same scenario, not to mention all the derogatory statements that were said at Adam Jones. It was already so much stuff going on edge at Fenway, so this just kind of added to it. But I really think a suspension should have happened, and that's what sucks when it comes to a pitcher. 3 games is 3 games. It's not necessarily 3 rotation spots, and that's what really pisses me off. It's like, if you're going to be suspended, be suspended. Don't half-ass it. That's what kind of upsets me. But I really think a suspension should have taken place, and especially a fine. But if you look at the officials this year, they're kind of like all over the place, and they're not really doing a great job. And so I think that alone started the whole thing. So I definitely think a suspension should have taken place. Not anything too harsh, because I do believe in the old school rules of baseball. But at the same time, like, you have to remember, these pitchers have 98-mile-an-hour weapons on their arm, and you could really hurt someone. And with the fact that he almost could have done that, that's what scares me. And if this happens where somebody does get hit in the face, then we have to use that as an example. And that's what scares me as well. And that's with everything, domestic violence and all this other stuff. You don't want to make an example after it's too late. So that's my big worry. But yeah, absolutely, a suspension should have taken place.
So is Manny Machado justified in saying that, hey, I got a bat, I can go out and I can crush people with this, I just choose not to because it'll be a year suspension? Well, obviously it would probably be a little bit longer, but is he justified in saying something like that?
Unfortunately, I do think he is. And I think Chris Sale, if you're going to throw your weapon and get away, oops, I got rid of my weapon. Like, well, don't be stupid, because homeboy's got protective gear, and he's got a bat, and he's probably got a shin guard. Like, it's all kinds of stuff. And the catcher can only do so much. You can only hold back the guy so much. Then you have a guy with multiple weapons and you have nothing, but what are you going to do, slap them around with your mitt? Like, I'm not promoting violence, saying like, these are the weapons you should use, but like, but don't be dumb about it. And it's just kind of one of those scenarios. It was a very immature scenario that happened, but at the same time, it's old school baseball. What are you going to do?
Zach checking in on Facebook saying, man, he stood his ground. He's already temperamental. The Red Sox need to end this, and I agree.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He's always had that type of temper. So the whole scenario didn't really surprise me. Him and Josh Donaldson went at it not too long ago, and it was a very similar scenario. So I wasn't too surprised that Manny Machado went off.
Now, looking at this, the people could say that the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry was something that was kind of good for the game, made people excited about that series. Now, do you think this could in any way be good for the game, or do you think it just should end now, never think about it again, act like it didn't happen?
It's actually a great question. I do think it's good for the game. Unfortunately, we're in a weird era where, they're making 75-foot hot dogs to drive in crowds and all this other stuff. So if you want to have this rivalry type of thing, like, why not? I mean, it's no different than buying a ticket because you want to witness the former World Series champions. It's really no different. So I think it's a good, kind of situation. They're going to play again on June 1st, I believe, is when they reunite. And I think the ticket prices will probably go up because who doesn't love the drama? Who doesn't love talking crap to your least favorite team and all that other stuff? So I don't condone going to a game just to be a dick. Like I definitely don't. But at the same time, like if you want to support your team and do it that way and do as heated of a rivalry without the violence as possible, sure. If it drags in money, I don't really care. It's the one thing I love about Tebow. Like actually in April, like ticket sales went up in minor league baseball simply because of him. So whatever helps, I guess.
Speaking of the AL East, we want to move from the bad now to the good. Aaron Judge, we were talking about this earlier, is got to be the next big star in baseball, wouldn't you say? He's off to an unbelievable tear. Is he somebody that could legitimately be a Rookie of the Year and an MVP candidate this year?
I mean, it's difficult to do both, and I'm not saying it's impossible to, but it's definitely difficult. And the cool thing about Aaron Judge is if you look at him overall, like you're thinking of him, you're thinking a lot of strikeouts, but he's actually subsided his strikeouts somewhat. He's still going to be a power hitter. It just is what it is, and it's nice to see his journey. I really followed him last year when he was a AAA All-Star and doing everything with the home run derby, and that power has been able to transcend from AAA up to the bigs, and that's great. And I really think he's definitely a candidate for Rookie of the Year, but that was the scenario heading into the season. He also wasn't as nominated as some other guys, of course, especially in the American League where there's all that other talent. It was definitely difficult. So I can see that. But when you have somebody like that, and there's so much talent overall. So when you're thinking of MVP, you're not just a rookie. You're thinking you have to go up against all these other guys in the American League, and that's just a difficult task in and of itself. So Rookie of the Year, you pretty much, if it were to happen today, has it in the bag. But MVP, it might be a difficult situation. But whatever he's doing, he's been phenomenal, and I'm so happy for him because he did struggle, not making the opening day roster, and that was really difficult. So I'm just glad that he's kind of standing his ground and being one of the young faces out there that just tearing it up because there's so much young talent, but he's top notch for sure.
Well, we love the fact that he wears number 99. That's the jersey that's going to be selling off the shelves very, very soon. Now, him, Andrew Benintendi, it's almost like a two-person race, but there's going to be some more rookies that come up too. Where do you see the AL East moving forward? I mean, is this going to be a long journey where we're going to see the AL East of Red Sox, Orioles, Yankees dominate for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years with these guys like Benintendi and Judge?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope so. Benintendi has been just phenomenal across the board. He's no longer the number one prospect for MLB Pipeline at Yoan Moncada, but that just means that Benintendi's getting a little bit older, so he's getting a little bit more respect. But I actually talked to a bunch of guys through the organization, not playing in the organization, but Red Sox writers and stuff like that. And he just has it all. Benintendi does. But yeah, it's really good to have Major League Baseball open these arms to these young guys, giving them chances, promoting them, and it's fabulous. And if you look at the Yankees in and of themselves, they're so young and they have such so much building to do and everything like that, and they're definitely in the rebuilding stages. You have guys like Greg Bird behind you, Aaron Judge. Clint Frazier hasn't even gotten his chance yet, and Aaron Hicks is still young as well. And so that's just great to see. And then same with the Red Sox. I mean, you have Dustin Pedroia, who is, going towards his retirement years, but he still, manages to put the bat on the ball. And the Orioles are actually one of my favorite American League teams heading into the season to be a very successful postseason team. They're filled to the brim with talent. And it's just great to see, you have that East Coast bias where you have those types of teams and those rivalries and everything like that, the old school type of baseball teams, if you will. So I think they're going to be very successful. And obviously, the more you win, the better prospects you get, the more trades you get, and the more successful you are, and you get more money. And the sky's the limit for those teams, absolutely.
Talking with our MLB insider, Jessica Kleinschmidt. She's joining us. You're in Reno, correct?
Unfortunately, yeah.
With the Reno Aces. Zach saying Toronto, are they getting too old, can't build from within? Why not them? What's up with them in the East? Toronto's only got 10 wins on the season. What is up with Toronto lately? Why haven't they projected out to be that offensive juggernaut that they were last year?
I mean, I think losing Edwin Encarnacion was really way more damaging than they were willing to admit. And I did talk to a Jays insider, and she basically said, actually losing E is probably going to be really, really rough for us. But then you start the season out, Donaldson had that recurring calf injury that we were anticipating maybe a 10-day DL stint, but the 10-day DL stint could be a 3-day stint or 3 months. You don't really know. So that was kind of a difficult scenario. Batista, where the hell has his bat been? I don't know where, but it's just been, pretty MIA. And then Kendrys Morales wasn't exactly stepping up to the plate because, him and EE kind of had that non-trade that kind of was a trade scenario, and he wasn't, doing anything. And Tulowitzki is dealing with injuries too. So your big name guys are having injuries. And then Marcus Stroman, who is one of my favorite pitchers heading into the season, he's doing well, but Francisco Liriano wasn't. And especially in his first outing in Tampa this time around, it was just really difficult to watch. And you're playing at a place like, Rogers Center, where you need to take advantage of the offensive capabilities of being a hitter's park, and you're not doing it. Something's going on. So I think injuries happen, but it was just like a Mets scenario where too many injuries were happening right off the bat, and they're just enough times gone by where it's like, okay, now it's time to panic. So I just think it's bad timing, and injuries are happening. Big name players aren't on the active roster, so it's just a really difficult time.
Let's talk about the NL Central real quick here. We got 3 games separating first through last. The Reds are leading that one by half a game over the Cardinals, but the Reds are tied with the Indians for the least amount of wins for a first-place team in the MLB. So is this a legit division here that's something going to be a good race and kind of have someone who can compete for the pennant, or is this kind of just like a honeymoon phase for the Central?
I mean, are we talking the NL Central or the AL Central?
NL Central.
Okay, you mentioned the Indians. I got confused. So yeah, with this particular division, yes and no. I mean, the Reds are definitely proving themselves with not a lot of pitching. All these young guys are kind of getting their promotions and doing what they have to do, and they're either doing great or not. So it's obviously going to be a scenario where, yeah, you take it seriously. The Cardinals, if Dexter Fowler can kind of get it together and everything like that, are always going to be in a postseason discussion. So I think it's enough times gone by where you're going to kind of stop and figure out which guys are we going to be taking, or which teams are we going to be taking seriously. And when it comes to this particular division, absolutely. I just think that we do need to give a little bit more time. It's just an awkward phase, awkward timing to really see, do we continue to give the Cardinals a chance? Are the Reds for real? I don't think that question is going to be answered for a little bit. But yeah, it's always a scenario where this division should be taken seriously.
Never is there a waning thought in a Cubs fan's mind, but they just got swept. Granted, it was by the Yankees, but they've gotten swept twice at home now. Is that something that fans should be worried about?
No, absolutely not. No. I mean, it's one of those scenarios. Like the beauty of baseball is you can beat the best team in the world and you'll still be in last place. You can lose to the worst team in the world and you could still win the pennant. It really doesn't matter. So it's just a timing issue. I mean, I feel like enough time's gone by. Like, guys are starting to get injured more. They're kind of messing around with prospects getting promoted and demoted and everything like that, figuring out where everything's kind of meshing before the All-Star break and everything like that. So I don't think Cubs fans need to worry at all. They still have a fabulous organization, a great lineup leading the way with Madden and everything. I don't think they have anything to worry about now.
All right, Jessica, we want to do something we're going to do with our correspondents and our guests, and that's play a game called Fast Five. We're going to give you 5 questions. You got 5 seconds for each question. We want the first thing that comes to your mind. So if you're ready, just let me know, and we'll go to it here.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, so question number 1, favorite baseball movie?
For love of the game.
Favorite baseball quote?
A life is not important besides the impact it has on other lives. Something like that by Jackie Robinson. Okay. I totally added it up, so that's great. Yeah.
Nice. Greatest player in baseball history?
Cal Ripken Jr.
Wow. Best stadium in baseball that you've been to?
Petco.
That's a good one.
Favorite baseball broadcaster to listen to?
Jessica Kleinschmidt. No. Man, probably. Well, can I say like a past one? It'd be Vince Scully. Okay. Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a current one that you listen to?
Probably C.J. Nikowski, only because I just love that man.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, very nice. Well, Jessica, once again, excellent stuff as always. You always bring it to the table. Today you were bringing it everything, even having to talk about we'll talk about the dildo. But we appreciate you coming on, being fiery as always. And
say that word. Like, you should have seen the media. They're like, it's a dildo. And I'm like, I know what it is. It's a sex toy. We've seen them before. Everybody's acting like it's like a bad word. And it's like, I get it. It's not like a term you use in the media. But I'm like, I wish I was there in the locker room to be like, so who's going to ask him about the sex toy?
I bet you would have been the first one to say, so whose dildo was that in the locker? Like, you probably would.
What's the deal with the sex toy? What's the deal with the sex toy? Tell me. Like, it's pretty much, how I am. But yeah, it's a kind of a fun thing, and it made more people pay attention. But it's just a weird word, and I understand it. But don't be scared to use a derogatory term every now and then.
All right.
You have to call it what it is. It's a damn dildo. What are you going to
do? Jessica Kleinschmidt, she can be found at Kleinschmidt JD on Twitter. And as always, you can see her writing on such outlets as Fangraphs, Sportsnet, MSN Sports, FanReg. Jessica, wonderful as always. We look forward to having you on again very, very soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Jessica Kleinschmidt there once again for us, our MLB insider, bringing the heat today. She was on fire today.
Oh yeah, man, as always.
She had a lot of things to say, and it was good stuff as always. But we played Fast Five with her, and now it's time to play Fair or Foul between the two of us. And by the way, Zach, I wanted to just mention, he said Sandlot is his favorite movie, so he's definitely legit. Anyway, we're going to play Fair or Foul. We always do. We each give each other three topics where we determine whether or not things are going to be true or false, or fair or foul, as we like to call it. So, you know what? I've taken the lead the last 2 weeks. I'm going to let you go first. And I'm going to have you ask me.
It's an honor, Barry. Thank you.
Well, I figure you should do something on this show, No, I'm just kidding.
First question. Yankees-Cubs World Series is possible this season.
It's a possibility.
And would you want it?
It's a possibility. No, I don't want it because I don't like the Yankees or the Cubs. I don't think the Yankees have enough experience yet to sustain a long 162-game season. I think eventually some of these guys are going to hit the wall. The Cubs know what it takes to win. They have that roster. They have that nucleus. They have that manager. Definitely see the Cubs in the World Series. I see the Yankees making the playoffs and having a fairly deep playoff run, but I don't see it this year. I see it maybe next year or 2 years down the road, and it's going to be a fantastic series. I don't like the teams, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, they remind me of the 2015 Cubs.
Yeah.
Where they had a lot of young people, a lot of excitement around it, and then just need a few little trades, little pieces to complete the puzzle in the next year, and can really get it done next year.
We've been talking about the NL East all day today, so my first question to you is, the Nats win the East by 15 or more games?
That's tough, because that's a lot.
It is a lot, but they're already up by 6.5 after a month.
I think so. Okay.
He's waffling.
In my head, I'm saying
somebody get Brett Favre on the phone.
The Nationals have to win 100 games. I think that would be something that's possible. When 100 games go 162. That means the next best team would have to be 85 or lower in the wins category. And I can 84 or lower, actually.
Yeah.
And so, I think I could see that. 15. Realistically, I think it could happen, but I think it's going to be 13 and a half games.
Yes,
13
maybe
games, 13.
So.
It's not half, sorry. Stupid. 13 games.
Okay. Well, we're not
13
mathematicians,
games.
so just
No,
forgive us for
obviously. I can't talk because I'm just thinking about the number. All I can see is numbers in my head, and I can't. It's not words; it's numbers. It's kind of. I don't speak well in numbers.
Well, at least you're not hearing voices in your head.
All right.
That's good.
I got 2 questions for you. First, did you know K-Rod's still in the league? Second, is he done being an MLB closer?
I knew he was still in the league because he pitched, obviously, here in Milwaukee. We loved him here. Of course, he gave up those home runs and stuff like that. And then when he left, everybody was saying, "Oh, who's going to be our closer?" And now all of a sudden, he's lost it. He didn't. He had to go to throwing a changeup and a slider after he lost his fastball after he got injured with the Angels. He was a second-tier closer with the Brewers, and then he went to the Tigers and became a third-tier closer. And now he's not a closer at all, and I think he is done. I think his Major League career is going to be over. I don't even think he's going to last the rest of the season. I think he's going to – it's either going to be one thing where he's going to read the writing on the wall and just say, you know what, I don't have it anymore, or it's going to be the Tigers saying, you know what, we can't use you. There's nowhere we can use you. Could they use him in the 8th inning? Maybe, possibly, but I don't see that scenario happening. So unfortunately for K-Rod, one of the best closers that we've ever seen, and one of the most animated closers we've ever seen. But definitely, I don't think he's got it anymore. I think he's done. Your take, we already talked about this too, and I apologize for the redundancy. But Chris Sale should have been fined or suspended for throwing behind Manny Machado.
Yes. Yes.
Clean and
yes.
simple.
Yep. Yes and yes.
Okay.
Easy.
Make it easy on you.
He could have injured someone really bad. Wasn't good, especially days after the event. I'd have a little more leniency if it was the next day, but it was not. Just not a good situation overall. Third one for you. You, Barry Nelson, stayed up to watch all 18 innings of Cubs-Yankees last night.
I didn't even watch a half an inning. I didn't watch any of that ball game. It was on, and I was just like, "Do I really want to watch this?"
Anti-Cubs?
I am.
Okay.
I have friends. I have friends that are diehard Cubs fans, and they are annoying as hell. And I'm sure they can say the same thing for me, being a Packer fan, that I'm annoying as hell. But you know what?
Yeah.
They are who they are. I don't begrudge them for liking their team and for rooting for their team. But when it gets to be obnoxiously stupid, I don't like fans like that. I don't like teams like that. And just knowing that the Cubs are going to be good for the next 5 years just kind of irks me, especially because the Brewers here in Milwaukee, I'm a homer, of course. The Brewers haven't been good.
Yeah.
For a long, long time. I shouldn't say that. They made the playoffs in 2008 and 2011, so they've had a modicum of success, but they haven't really had overall World Series success, so we'll have to wait and see. Now, I did have a question for you that was up on our rundown, and I just deleted it.
Scared.
No. This is something we were going to talk to Jessica Kleinschmidt about, but we decided we were running up against the clock, so we decided to eliminate it. So I'm going to pose this question to you. Ryan Braun becomes a 10-5 player, meaning that he can block any trade that he wants. He can determine who he wants to go to and stuff like that. Now, he's a little bit injured, a little bit nicked up. Ryan Braun is a Milwaukee Brewer after July 31st.
With this new 10-5, or I guess not new kind of realized, no one really thought of it until very recently.
And given his injury scenario.
I think he is.
Think he stays part of the rebuilding program?
I don't want to call it the rebuilding program because I don't think you'll want to rebuild around Ryan Braun. I think he's just going to stick around. Like, he wants to be with Milwaukee. He'll want to be there so he can say that he can be there, and no one can really say anything outside of that unless if David Stearns can really get into him and say, hey, if you care about this organization, and it's tough because we're not going to have you in it, but this is important for us if we can trade you and get something back so we can actually start rebuilding and start younger, because his years are definitely numbered with the injuries. But with the injuries, who's going to want to take him? And is it going to be worth it to deal Ryan Braun? So I think the way it is now, he's not going to get traded this season. That's changed because of the injury situation. But next year, it's just each year is getting higher and higher, the possibility of him going as just a little rent-a player in September, or for September through October.
I'd like to see. It's rare that we see somebody stay with their team for the entire career in this day and age with free agency and everything like that. I'd like to see Ryan Braun stick around and be part of that. Be part of that upheaval again as we go through, as Milwaukee goes through a rebuilding process. And I'd like to see him be that veteran leader out there. I don't know how much he can be because of the injuries, and we'll just see what happens, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting. But if you have any comments and any questions, anything you want to talk about, please feel free to comment on our Facebook page, comment on our Facebook Live page. We enjoy having you all, and we enjoy talking about Major League Baseball in general, and it's so much fun for us, and we want to include you. So please, by all means, check out our Bruce Sports page at brucesports.net. Also, our Facebook page and we also have Twitter, our Twitter handle. BruceSportsNet.com, not BruceSports.net. Yep. I knew net was in there. So BruceSportsNet.com, all our archive shows, all of our stuff is on there. And of course, you can join us on Facebook. Our weekly shows we have, or our daily shows, we have Morning Brew with Jamie and Baxter, and then Baxter and Tanner at halftime. Our other weekly shows, Pick Six with Tanner and James, and then Jimmy and Mitch with Double Dribble. We love to promote them and see them. And
good stuff going on here.
It's a lot of good stuff, especially with the NBA playoffs coming up. And we encourage you to like us on Facebook, join us on Facebook, and comment on Facebook, and be part of the programming as we bring it to you each and every week. So for our engineers and producers, Baxter Coburn and David Bobke, and for Ryan, I'm Barry saying thank you so much for joining us inside the park this week. We'll see you next week, Monday, once again, inside the park.